But I want to kind of do a broad overview, and I want to kind of talk about how just how interesting some things are coming together, or have come together, or not come together in the whole Rick and Morty universe, and particularly in terms of the internal struggle the series has, which is mainly about Dan Harmon and probably Justin Roiland, but definitely Dan Harmon, about the struggle between being episodic and serial, right? So as you know, episodic is that form of TV show that each week everything wraps up nicely, finishes up. Next week we start again, almost afresh as if the week before never happened. So you're talking about the NCISs. If you want to go way back to the day, the A-Team, any number of cartoons.
Basically, most superhero shows back in the day, most cartoons.
Nothing flows over. Nothing flows over against the serialized, which is the opposite, which one episode builds on the other episode, builds on the other episode. And to me, the most extreme example I could find of that was the early days of Game of Thrones. We had 6 or 7 storylines, all moving the ball forward 6 minutes each episode. And I know there was a couple of times in those early days, and we look back now with great fondness at the early days of Game of Thrones. But I was frustrated because there was hardly any closure. There's hardly any sense of going forward,
right?
And any distance, because it was just 6 minutes here, 6 minutes there. That was Arya's, that was the Lannisters, that was the Hounds. Anyway, so that's an extreme example. And as we know, in today's world, most shows we watch are a combination of those two, right? So if you look at something like The Mandalorian, it's kind of, in the first season particularly, it started off, yes, there was the general idea of getting Baby Yoda, back to the guy who wanted him. But in between, they were quite episodic. Like he would fight this monster this week, fight this person next week, Bill Burr would turn up the next week. And then towards the end, it as it seems to happen, it got more serial. And then, of course, season 2 was a lot more serialized with Bo-Katan and Ahsoka coming on board. So with Rick and Morty, for the first couple of seasons, it just felt like Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland just wanted to be jazz musicians and just
do whatever. Let's see what we can play with it all the way through, right?
And every once in a while, they would drop a big episode and kind of reveal or not reveal something of Rick's backstory. Like there was an episode where you saw, and spoilers here, you saw the death of his wife and daughter, which he almost immediately took back, right? And then there was the Citadel with Evil Morty, and they just leave it, and they never come back to it. And you got the feeling that just, Dan being he strikes me as someone who's just kind of a precocious, creative guy who just wants to do what he wants to do. In this season, there's a very, right from the first couple episodes, there's a very deliberate attempt to start addressing some of the serial elements that they introduced earlier.
Right.
And how Rick is a bit like Deadpool sometimes and loves to break the fourth wall and talk about what they're actually doing in terms of storytelling. And every time he kind of mentions something, you think, oh, that's backstory. That's a piece of the puzzle. He almost says to us, he does say, oh, more backstory bullshit, right? And it's like Dan Harmon I'm conceding here, but I don't want to concede. Finally, in the last 2 episodes, which I think are the only 2 episodes that directly connect to each other, the one flows into the next one directly, he then dumps. He dumps the backstory and dumps the character and does all that stuff. The end of season 5. And I thought to myself, there it is again. Season 5, season 6. And I thought to myself, and I know a lot of people are really excited, have been really excited about these 2 episodes. I'm so on it. I'm glad that we got a bit of backstory. At the same time, I don't know where they go from here.
Right.
And I don't know whether they even need to go anywhere from here. They will, because he's got a huge contract.
Yep.
For Adult Swim for another 60 episodes. I'm not sure I'm excited anymore, right? I'm not sure I'm into that, because I think, again, back to the theory that you and I have both had, 5 or 6 seasons
is about it. Yeah.
Enough. And I know you've got some thoughts on that as well.
When you get past getting to 6 through 8, 6 through 10 season, I think it's hard to start fleshing out the character anymore because the character. Like I always use the concept of even moving to a place. I always say, like, whenever you've lived in a place for 4 years, you're from that area because you've gotten the full rotation of that area. First year is always the figure it out year. Second year, you kind of confirm what you learned the first year. Third year, you're establishing your place. And by the fourth year, you kind of know exactly what to expect. So everything from that point on just ends up being a confirmation repeat of what you already know. So when it comes to these shows, it makes it difficult to be able to say, what am I learning more of the character that I don't know now? Like, what are we gaining, or the characters? Like, what are we gaining at this point? Like, the adventures that they have, yes, you can have a wild one, but the reason the adventures matter is because through them, you gain a better idea of what the characters has to offer.
And I think that's really, really important for the serials. For the episodic, like, so let's look at NCIS. People are not watching those shows for character. They're watching it for a formula, right? Just like all those soap operas that go for, like, General Hospital. They're watching that for formula.
Right.
When you're watching a serial, you're watching for character.
Right.
And you think about a lot of the shows that do go the extra mile, that do go longer than 7 or 8 and still go strong, a lot of them are not based on character development. And I think about, not all of them, there are a couple outliers more than what you said, but I think about something like Seinfeld, which was going really strong right to the very end. The number one rule of Seinfeld is those characters don't change, right? There's no lessons are learnt. It's part of their mantra. No lesson, just like Curb Your Enthusiasm. So we don't watch that show to see Jerry change, evolve, and rah, rah, rah. We don't.
But that's the thing. We kind of did, though, and that's why it had to end. We did see it. With George, you can say they didn't change, but we saw George go from being this guy who couldn't find a job to this guy who found a job to this guy who got married to who was about to get married to this guy who would have maybe his core element stayed basically the same, but we saw it actually still develop into its solidification. Because the George from first season and the George from 7th season, while they might be still the same antsy kind of guy, but it feels a lot more so like he's got more experience at the end.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what he goes through is I mean, I've often used the idea, stole the idea of George to do everything. If I want to start succeeding in life, do everything the opposite to what my instincts tell me. But I think that when you're developing character, just going right back to you said, when you go back to 6 seasons, you pretty much know everything you need to know about a person. And if Breaking Bad, one of the very best shows on TV and one of the biggest character arcs, the most dramatic character arcs, they do it in 6 seasons and they say quit, I reckon that's a pretty strong signal that 5 to 6 should be about it. I hope that Rick and Morty, I just think suspicion Rick and Morty is about to go stale on me.
Probably.
Let's remind our friends to please click on the subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you know when we have new videos out.
Subscribe.
Subscribe!
Die. Oh, die.